Today on Satansplain, we'll hear an uncut 2016 interview from Harvard University Radio on Satanism and the Church of Satan, covering the basics and beyond.
Well, it's not Satan worship, it's Satanism. It's embracing the life-enriching things which have traditionally been given the devil's name. Pride, lust, earthly success, rational self-interest, atheism, humor, nonconformity, science, a passion for living, being selective about whom we love. We don't see these as shameful sins, but empowering ideals. And we also recognize the psychological power and fun of symbolism and aesthetics, so we utilize Satan as mythology's most fitting mascot for what we're about.
Satansplain, Satanic Talk with Church of Satan Magister Bill M.
Magister Bill M. here with Satansplain. Way back in episode number 2 of Satansplain, I presented a recording of an interview I did for a witchcraft podcast who ended up chopping it up to pieces, mixing it in with interviews from other people who I don't think were even Satanists, and in the process, misrepresenting Satanism and the Church of Satan. So in episode number 2 of Satansplain, I presented the original uncut interview, which I had recorded myself, and I explained where the interviewer got things grossly wrong. And I have other interviews that I've done over the years, and thankfully not all of them went wrong in the end, like that one. More often than not, I have to say they usually went really well. I've had some interviewers who did some actual research before I went on. Imagine that. You know, interviewers who didn't ask the same exact old questions that we usually get. Interviewers who didn't have some hidden agenda, didn't do something deceitful with the recording afterwards. I've also had some interviews that I thought went well, but then for some reason they never aired. I remember at least one podcast who interviewed me, but they never aired the recording. Or for that matter, newspapers and television stations who've interviewed me, but then the interview never saw the light of day. I think some news places want to interview Satanists because they want to hear stories about us summoning demons and sacrificing animals, and when they find out we don't do that, they think there's no hot story to run. Or maybe they're afraid of agreeing with us too much. They don't want to be seen as agreeing with the bad guys, the Satanists. So in any case, I do have recordings of different interviews I've done over the years, some of which are not available anywhere else or are extremely hard to find. And I would like to share some of them here on Satansplain from time to time. There was likewise an interview I did talking about the Satanic Witch. You heard that in a previous episode of Satansplain. But in this episode you're listening to right now, well, I would like to share with you an interview I did back in November of 2016 for Harvard University Radio. This was 95.3 FM, WHRB, Cambridge, Massachusetts. It was part of a feature called Highlighting the Hidden, described as a cultural segment on the radio program they had called As We Know It. And the DJ allowed a Satanist into the studio alone with her, a man she didn't know, dressed all in black on a dark and rainy night. But seriously, I thought it went really well. And recently I compared the full interview, which I had recorded on my own, I compared that with the one that finally aired, and I realized there were several minutes of it that got left out. And I really, really don't think that this was done in bad taste. I think, honestly, it was a time constraint issue. Some things got chopped out, and some of the things got, moved around. But the bottom line is that the main points were all there. The final airing went well. There wasn't anything deceptive or misrepresenting me about the final result. But again, several minutes were cut out, so I want to play a full clip. I want to play the interview in full. I spent a good time trying to take parts that aired, which were of really good quality, and mixing it in with the original recording I had, the parts that didn't air, but were of kind of inferior quality. And I put in a lot of work to get things mixed right, and then I listened to it and I thought, nah, this is kind of annoying the way it jumps back and forth between the two different levels of quality. So instead, I'm just going to play you the recording that I made. I tried cleaning this up the best as I could. You'll hear some banging noises occasionally. I honestly don't remember what that was. Maybe it was myself or the DJ picking up and putting down a glass of water on the table, or shifting in a seat that keeps hitting the table where I had my audio recorder. I don't know. But in any case, here is the interview in full. And this was also, I think, one of the first times I used a description of Satanism similar to the one you hear at the beginning of every Satansplain episode, or at least a variation of it. I think this was the first interview where I actually kind of put that together. So I'm going to just let this full interview play. No commercial breaks or satanic dotes this time. Before I play it, though, just a reminder that this podcast you are listening to right now is Satansplain. Visit the official website, Satansplain.com. That's Satansplain.com. You can find the past episodes there. You can also listen to Satansplain on Spotify, YouTube, Audible, Apple Podcasts, and a number of other places. For questions, complaints, comments, and the like, well, you can email me. bill@satansplain.com is the email address. And you can also follow Satansplain on Facebook and Twitter. Find the direct links to those on satansplain.com. And now, recorded November 15th, 2016, and aired on January 29th, 2017, here is my interview on Highlighting the Hidden, a cultural segment on WHRB 95.3 FM radio's program, As We Know It. That's the name of the show, As We Know It. Hail Satan and enjoy.
Right. This is 95.3 WHRB Cambridge. This is Waverly with the segment Highlighting the Hidden. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Bill M., and I'm a magister with the Church of Satan.
Well, it's great to have you here, Bill. Could you just give us a general overview of exactly what the Church of Satan is?
Sure. The Church of Satan was founded in 1966 by Anton Szandor LaVey, who also went ahead and wrote the Satanic Bible. He passed away about 20 years ago, and we're now headed by Peter H. Gilmore, who also wrote the Satanic Scriptures. And the Church of Satan was the first to establish Satanism as an actual religion. Religions have always been about the spiritual, and we're actually about the carnal. So we're not devil worshippers, even though devil worshippers have been around for centuries. And we call ourselves Satanists. We use Satan as a fitting symbol, a mythological archetype, if you will, for things traditionally given the devil's name, which we find self-empowering. And we embrace things like pride and rational self-interest, a passion for living, lust, greed, material success, atheism, humor, nonconformity, justice, and all these other fun things.
Wow, that sounds a lot more like a social movement rather than a religion. Would you categorize it as a religion?
I would still say Satanism is a religion. It does have a philosophy, and like all the religions, also has dogma and ceremony to it and symbolism. I wouldn't really say it's so much of a social movement because it is a very individualist religion. We're all people who came together under this same book, but we apply it in different ways, and our main concern is furthering ourselves as individuals, not so much trying to better humanity, things in that sense.
Would you say that having a social hierarchy, however, is in conflict with the individualist values of the church?
It's not, because each individual member is able to go manifest Satanism as the way that they see it. And when it comes time to doing representation for the media, and in situations like this, it's good to have certain go-to sources, some people a little better at it than others. And there's also no obligation to actually out yourself as a Satanist, because we know the reality is that this is a very frowned upon religion, and if word were to get out in some businesses that it was a Satanist working, they might try to fire them, as legal as it might be. So we're always trying to keep self-preservation in mind. That's our top thing.
How common would you say is it to be an out and proud Satanist?
Not very as common. It's not really common to see Satanists out and about in there. Most Satanists are just moving on with their lives and don't really want much connection. They don't want to make a big show about their Satanism, including, myself where I work. I mean, I'm here giving a representation, but, where I work, I certainly don't mention religion in the workplace. I'm not trying to shock people as I go about my day wearing crazy things.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Why would you say that you do feel comfortable being more out and proud? Is it because you have a particularly supportive family, or your friends? Are they also in the church?
Well, I'm not sure if I'd really say I'm always proud to be out. I mean, a lot of my life is hidden. A lot of, relatives and a few close friends don't necessarily know I'm a Satanist. I don't use my real legal name on things, pertaining to Satanism, vice versa.
How many Satanists are there if everybody is very secretive about it?
It's hard to say just how many Satanists there are in the world, and especially how many members there are of the Church of Satan, because I actually don't know how many members there are in the Church of Satan. We've had this policy since the beginning of always keeping the numbers of the Church of Satan private and unknown. The idea being if it's a number that people might find too small, people might think that we're easy to wipe out or shouldn't be taken seriously. And if it's a number that people find too big, people might think that we're a threat and likewise, try to go against us. So,
yeah,
largely hidden.
Are there many in Boston that you know of?
I certainly know of a few in Boston, and some of them don't simply choose not to interact with other Satanists. Even that's their prerogative. I had almost formed a grotto. This was back when we used to have the grotto system, which we don't really do anymore, having local, gatherings. But with the day and age of the internet, it's not really needed for that. It's much easier to go find somebody who lives in a different part of the country who's maybe a Satanist that is more along the lines of what you want to do, the projects you want to make, rather than having to be restricted to a geographical region. But yeah, there's certainly some Satanists in the Boston area, New England, beyond.
So you said a lot of you find each other online. Is that pretty much where Satanism is nowadays? Is it expanding?
Well, Satanism has always sort of been expanding, and people find the Satanic Bible and read it and identify it, and they decide from there if they're Satanists, and that's sort of how they pretty much learn about Satanism and become Satanists. It's not a religion for everybody, but as with any sort of minority group, the internet has been a huge benefit for that, and getting people who wouldn't normally run into each other a chance to interact and do things together.
Wow. I'm a little confused because earlier you said Satanism is largely built on individualism.
Mm-hmm.
If it's more built on individualism rather than cooperation or community, then what is the real reason people are drawn to the church? What drew you specifically?
Well, what drew me is that I had read the Satanic Bible and I'd looked into some of these other groups that were claiming to be representations of Satanism, and I found that the Church of Satan was simply the one organization that best represented my personal convictions and my understanding of Satanism. And it's beneficial to have sort of a central administrative office, a go-to place for that. And that's how you were able to contact me today, because we had a central place to go to. And so that way you didn't have to wade through all these, thousands of people online claiming to be a Satanist who had a Facebook account for 6 months called, Mosque of Lucifer Reformed or whatever,
That's true. It's very helpful to have a central office. But would you say that, you were more likely to join the church because of your own personality, or what are the values that you think you have in common with the church?
Well, all of us have read the Satanic Bible and we agree with those underlying principles and agree that we've taken them. We may have manifested them and applied them in different ways in our lives, but we're all still about those core principles I mentioned and in bettering ourselves as individuals. And sometimes bettering yourself as an individual, networking does come in handy when it comes to things like that, especially people who are on the same page with you. And that's not just true of Satanism, that's true of almost any interest, really.
I'm curious as to how you define bettering yourself. If the whole point isn't philanthropy or reaching out to the community, how does one better oneself in the church?
Well, if a Satanist wants to do philanthropy, wants to do things for the community, they are most certainly welcome to. We have Satanists who are involved in some active organization or another, activist groups. A lot I know are involved in animal rights, which, dispelling that old stereotype that we sacrifice animals and things like that, which is a Hollywood stereotype, and I lost track of as my mind wanders here. We're running out of the rain.
No, please. What are some other misconceptions that you would like to clear up about Satanism?
Well, I think one of the biggest misconceptions these days that I didn't really see so much, say, like 20 years ago, is that we're the Illuminati.
The Illuminati!
Yeah. I get like several messages a week, almost always from people in Western Africa and Nigeria, who not only believe in the Illuminati and not only believe that, any website that says Satan in the title is the Illuminati, but that, the Illuminati has all these millionaire job positions that they're willing to give away to complete strangers. So I get all these messages from people in Africa saying, how can you, make me rich? I want to join you. And saying, it doesn't really work like that. Why don't you try reading our website, please?
Wow. That's crazy. Where do you think that came from?
It's hard to say. I mean, a lot of it does go all the way back to, there were rumors about the Freemasons being devil worshippers and controlling, and somehow that led into a whole conspiracy about controlling the world banks and things like that. And to this day, you still have conspiracy theorists who try to point to, even like the honor societies you might see here at Harvard and other places, trying to say, oh, it's a secret society. That means they're devil worshippers and everything's connected together. And it's just silly.
Have you heard of any Harvard students who were connected with the church?
Well, I do know at least of a couple Harvard graduates who are Church of Satan members. I'm not going to, give their name. Yeah. We respect the privacy of our members. But, again, it's not to try to tie this into like, the Illuminati and conspiracy theory stuff. That's a little goofy. Sorry to disappoint you. No. Disappoint listeners.
I feel like a lot of people have this idea that Church of Satanists are, very mysterious and always in the shadows.
Well, some of us are. Some of us do latch on to that sort of the darker aesthetic with things. Some of us also wear Hawaiian shirts, so it's different. It comes down to that expressing yourself as an individual with that. Even if we have some of that common aesthetics that may come into place more so with, ritual things.
What sort of rituals do you have?
So like all religions, we do have a ritualistic component, but we believe that ritual is largely a human-made invention. It's a psychological tool that humans have developed for themselves. And we still use ritual as humans today, whether it's in a religious or a secular context. If we, we're graduating from school, we wear the caps and gowns, we blow out candles on a birthday cake, we cut a ribbon, open a new business. And we do these things. We like symbolism. We like commemorating certain emotional events with that. And we realize within Satanism, you can take that ritual, that component that religion has used for years, and use it within the satanic concepts and celebrate what we are.
Wow. That actually brings me to my biggest question.
Okay.
Why Satan? I feel like any church that is really founded on principles of individualism, and personal freedom and going back to the carnal could really use almost any icon. Why Satan?
Satan is the most fitting mythological figure, I think. Therefore, the best mascot to sort of summarize all these principles. The original meaning of Satan in Hebrew is the adversary, and so we're similarly adversarial to sort of popular trends. We're really skeptic on things that are going on, and as I mentioned, the other principles that things have been attributed to Satan: having rational self-interest, having pride, having sex before marriage, things like that, within consenting sex with adults. And all these things are considered the realm of Satan. So we say, okay, we're going to take that and wear it on our sleeve.
Wow. Did you have any personal qualms with that at the beginning, or were you completely on board?
Well, when I first read the Satanic Bible, I wasn't sure what to make of it at first, but then the philosophy really made sense. And then when I realized why Satan was the convenient archetype chosen for that, it just all made sense to me.
Can I ask a personal question?
Sure.
What was your religious background when you were growing up?
I had gone through a number of different religions before I had found Satanism. I was originally raised Catholic, like a lot of Irish families here in Boston. I had done some New Age dabbling. I was a devout Wiccan at some point in my teenage years, and I'd started dabbling with Eastern religions, but I really couldn't find the thing that really fit with me and really resonated with me. And when I found Satanism, that's when I found something that said, okay, this is really who I'm about. This is something I could really make a part of myself and continue for years.
Absolutely. So do you see your rebelling against the Catholic Church by joining the Wiccan? Was that rebelling against your parents? Was that normal just experimentation? Or was it just not for you?
Well, I came to the realization really early that Catholicism just wasn't for me, and just in terms of principles, and let alone the metaphysical beliefs of it. So I had gone on to different things. I think when I was a devout Wiccan, that was in high school, and I was going to a Catholic high school at the time, and some of that was not so much a thing against Catholicism, but sort of trying to assert my identity, which is what a lot of teenagers are trying to do, is you make that transition to adulthood. But I discovered Satanism after I had already, moved out of my parents' place. I was going to college, and so a lot of people try to say, oh, like you're into Satanism to rebel against your parents or rebel against Christians. Like, no, that's not really it at all. I have a great relationship with my parents.
What are your thoughts on Christians?
Well, as Satanists, we realize that Satanism is not for everybody, and also some people might find that a spiritual religion, rather than our carnal religion, is more fitting to them. And if Christianity is the thing that fits you, we say that's fine. We believe in separation of church and state, and that people should have the freedom to practice as long as you're not infringing on other people's beliefs. So I have friends who are Christians. They understand where I'm coming from. I understand where they're coming from. They don't try to push things on me and vice versa. And so we're fine with it as long as you're not trying to include people that don't wish to be included or trying to spread lies about our religion, which Christians certainly did back in the 1980s during the whole Satanic Panic hysteria. It was believed there were roving bands of Satanists that were kidnapping kids and eating them and doing all this stuff.
So that didn't happen?
No, that didn't happen. There was... It's interesting if you look up some of the details in retrospect of the Satanic Panic, as that whole hysteria was called. There were a few isolated incidents of devil worshippers who, crazy people who may have did up their crimes in satanic aesthetics, but no evidence of actual huge groups of devil worshippers doing all these things. And that talk show hosts, a lot of daytime talk show hosts and Christian propagandists were trying to make people believe this whole fear. There was all these things going on, and the FBI looked into it, and there really wasn't any evidence.
Do you think those prejudices are still alive today?
There are certainly some people who still latch on to the Satanic Panic thing and still believe in all the silly things you see in bad horror movies and church propaganda that Satanists do this and that. But I think people nowadays, especially with the internet, are a little more educated and a little more skeptical and can easily go online and look up the Church of Satan and realize, oh, okay, Satanists don't actually do all these stupid things you see in the movies.
So is that how you think the prejudice can be overcome, just by educating people?
I think prejudice can be overcome to some extent by education, but we also, we're realistic also, and we realize that there are always going to be some people who want to remain willfully ignorant about Satanism or about the Church of Satan, especially if they have an agenda and they want things to conform to their idea of what horrific things a Satanist should be.
Wow. Amidst all the prejudice, I'm really curious how you all recruit and get more Satanists.
Yeah, we don't actively recruit for members. It's always been a case of, here is our literature, here's what we're about, and making media appearances like this one from time to time when we're asked, and having, and some people find it and decide it's for them. And some people don't look at all. Some people read it and say, not for me. And we say, that's fine.
If you were to paint a picture of the typical new Satanist, what would it look like? What would that person look like? Is there a particular demographic? Or?
A picture of a new Satanist as in somebody who's new to Satanism or
yes.
like new? Okay. It's hard to actually paint an exact picture of who is new to Satanism, because I've seen people who come to Satanism from all sorts of backgrounds. Some come from a very militant atheist background, and we are atheists, and we believe deities are the invention of humankind, including Satan. We use Satan strictly as a symbol. But I've seen other people come from other backgrounds, occult backgrounds. I've some people who are
Cult background.
occult backgrounds. So, some people who might have been dabbling in Aleister Crowley and things like that, but found their way from there to Satanism. Other people who were even like born again Christians finding their way over. So we say it doesn't really matter so much what your past is, as long as, if you've come here and find that this is for you, then that's the important thing.
I have heard some chatter that the Church of Satan is a cult. What would you say to that?
The accusations that the Church of Satan are a cult don't really make any sense to me, because a cult, I would think first and foremost, you have to meet up with other people and they tell you what to do in your personal life. And you can be a Satanist can be somebody who just read the Satanic Bible and understands it and never talks to another Satanist for as long as they live. So, how can we be a cult if we don't make any sort of social demands like that or meeting demands? It doesn't really make any sense. And if anything, we're sort of the exact opposite of cult. We're encouraging people to take these principles that you have in this book, these principles that inspired you, and let's see what you're doing to better yourself as an individual and what individual things are creating. Are you creating? Are you writing books? Are you creating paintings? Did you found a new company? What are you doing as a professional scientist? We like to hear this. And we're a mutual admiration society, it's been said.
What does that mean?
Well, I think we're not a cult. We're a mutual admiration society in the sense that we realize there are other people who have taken, within the Church of Satan, taken these principles of Satanism and applied it to their lives and done some incredible things. And we don't have to all get along, but we can certainly admire and be inspired to what other members are doing.
But there definitely is a monetary aspect of the church, isn't there? Because if I remember correctly, on the website, you have to send in a fee to be registered.
Yeah, there is a one-time, lifetime membership fee to join the Church of Satan.
What does that actually go towards if there's no real...
We still have an administrative office to keep track of. So, we have websites that we're running, and we have members who are going out and doing interviews or doing one thing or another. So there's administrative costs to take care of. I think also the membership fee is sort of a good way to filter out people, because this is, after all, a religion about materialism and material success. And how serious are you about the religion? We have some people who come and think they're serious, but if you can't really commit to the idea of it, maybe the Church of Satan isn't for you. Maybe Satan isn't for you. I don't know. We don't say that Satanists have to be a member of the Church of Satan to be a Satanist, but there are certainly benefits to it. And if you do the math with a lifetime membership, it comes out to ridiculously cheap. As I'm talking here today, I do the math. It's less than like a price of a cup of coffee for today. For when I take 200 and divide by, the number of years I've been in.
Wow. One thing that struck me, you said this is a religion built around material success. What would you say to the idea that the Church of Satan is really just nihilism dressed up?
Well, it's strange with nihilism. I wouldn't say there is really a nihilistic... It depends on how you're defining nihilism. There may be a nihilistic component in the idea of things in the long term, in the cosmic sense, don't really care, that there isn't really a God looking out for you. But what that means is that it is all up to you, and life really does matter to you as a Satanist, that you are the one who controls your life. You are the commander of your fate. That's why we say in Satanism, you are your own God. So we believe deities are the creation of human, the human imagination, but when it comes to things at the end of the day, I am the most important person in my life. I'm the one who needs to make the important decisions. I'm the one responsible for the outcome. So I am my own God in that sense.
Do you think that train of thought would apply to parents? I am ultimately the most important person in my life. What does that say for one's relationships to family and loved ones?
Well, the thing is, it's in my best interest to also keep my family happy. And we have Satanists who certainly are parents. You don't have to, when we say, as a Satanist, I am my own God, it doesn't mean you're everybody else's God as well. So certainly within parenting, we have a lot of Satanists who are parents, and some resources on how to do that. We don't necessarily raise children under Satanism. We think that Satanism is a religion you have to sort of take up and find, see if that naturally fits with you. Not something that can really be forced or indoctrinated on somebody.
Okay, I'm sorry. I find that fascinating. I feel like I've taken up so much of your time, but one of my main questions is what you would say to young people, or really anyone who's just curious about Satanism.
I would say to anybody who's curious about Satanism is the same thing who's curious about any other topic, is make the effort to go out and learn it. And I don't mean just like surfing the web and finding the first few clickbait articles you can find on the topic, but, get some printed books, read up on it, talk to people who identify as Satanists, go to churchofsatan.com. There's a wealth of information there. It's free, essays and so forth. Buy a copy of the Satanic Bible, have a read.
And I guess this is sort of related to that, and you've been alluding to it the whole interview. If someone's listening, and how would they know that the Church of Satan is for them? Like, what kind of person are you really talking to?
Well, I think in order for a person to decide if the Church of Satan is for them, I think just interact maybe with some people in the Church of Satan. And first and foremost, have you read the Satanic Bible? Have you read up on Satanism? Do you understand it? Is it something that is really for you? Is that something for you? So then you can decide, can you benefit, do you think, in being a Church of Satan member?
And to all of those who are prejudiced against Satanists, what would you say to them?
Well, if Satanism isn't for you, it's simply not for you, and that's fine, and we don't try to push things on other people. I think it's naive, though, to try to spread lies about Satanists doing one thing or another, or jump to irrational conclusions about what Satanism is or isn't, especially when there's so much free information available written by Satanists out there.
That was fantastic. Is there anything else you'd like to say to our listeners?
I want to say that you have a really cool shirt. You have a Christmas Story shirt.
I do.
I saw that in the theaters when I was a kid, and it was like almost an empty theater, and nobody really latched on to the movie for the longest time. And
it's brilliant.
And now it's a cult classic.
It's an absolutely underrated film. I have to say that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And you have a pentagram. I have to say, if I were to envision a Satanist, you would look exactly like him.
Okay.
For the listeners who cannot see him,
I hope that's good.
It's great. Okay. For the listeners who can't see them, he is decked out all in black, with a pentagram, silver pentagram around his neck, and his hair in a low ponytail. So, pretty badass, I have to say.
Well, thank you.
I'm probably gonna have to edit that out, but it's pretty cool. So thank you so much for coming down. I had a great time, and this has been super, super interesting.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. All right, that has been...
You have been listening to Satansplain. If you have enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and subscribe where available. For more information on the show, visit Satansplain.com. And to learn more about Satanism itself, visit churchofsatan.com. This episode, copyright 2022, Magister Bill M.